Hi, I'm Mike Voice. I want to paint you a scenario. It's not my scenario, though the words are mine. Imagine, if you will, that for many thousands of years a dark force has been more or less in control of the planet. It has operated through human beings, which it's, as it were, drawn into itself, taken over, generation after generation, with indeed selective breeding and organisation and so forth. The people most closely controlled in this way have been given control for this dark force of the planet. Today, to be found, I dare say not all, I wouldn't know, but the most powerful people on the planet, in, or rather perhaps behind government, and the true power in military, notably I suppose the USA, but also in the UK and elsewhere, and multinational corporations, not necessarily the individual members of boards of directors, but the forces that actually control those corporations. And perhaps in many ways, very worryingly, international organizations, regulatory organizations, those who should be making sure that governments and corporations and military forces obey some sort of code of rules. The people who have that power do not work in the interests of humanity, the ordinary people, you and I. They work for a cabal that has been called the Illuminati and various names. And there aren't actually all that many of the people who really pull the strings in the world we live in. Now, from a variety of sources, it is suggested that there's been a sort of, especially very recently, a sort of Star Wars between this dark force and other forces. You may call them the Andromedan Confederation or various names. I don't know that the names actually matter much. And that as recently as this summer, this autumn, the forces of light have defeated the forces of darkness, which have so long been in power, and indeed the darkness has been driven away from the earth, though of course there are still remnants here. Imagine, if you will, the mind state of the Illuminati, this cabal of powerful people, programmed to serve the masters of evil. Suddenly the masters are gone. I think it's reasonable to believe that they are terrified. And certainly the evidence is that they have lost all sense of balance and have gone for levels of control over individuals and groups and humanity at large, unknown even in Hitler's Germany or Stalin's Soviet Russia. This, of course, includes the control of the media, as well as chemtrails and HAARP controlling the atmosphere, as well as a Star Wars net of space defences, as well as fluoride in the water to dumb us down, suggestions of lithium also, and many, many, many other things. Now, the ordinary people have in recent times, and not only because of the wild excesses of these people, very difficult not to notice, but because our own awareness is changing. Many people are starting to say, enough, no more. Now, the Illuminati may remember the French Revolution. This autumn I visited Paris, and for the first time ever I went to the Palace of Versailles, and it was very easy for me to see how the French kings and aristocracy of the 1700s became utterly, utterly, utterly divorced from any understanding, any awareness, any contact with the ordinary people of France, even the ordinary people of Paris. So, when administrative incompetence combined with a series of poor harvests, and there was real hardship, the ruling class carried on as if nothing were happening, perhaps even unaware of the suffering which was actually all around their little bubble, their own little world. I can understand the outrage and indignation that led to the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror, when anyone even associated with the ruling class was executed on the guillotine by the thousand and the tens of thousands. I think the Illuminati are aware of that, hence the greatest controls. What I think most of us may reasonably understand is what happened to France after Saint-Just's reign of terror. The people of France had in a very short time exchanged a king and a nobility for an ignoble emperor who exhausted France and exhausted the French people, bringing about the death of half the male population of France. And I think in some ways, although of course France has learned and improved and grown, but in some ways I don't think, in terms of being a world power, France has ever recovered from Napoleon Bonaparte. The truth is, when you meet a wrong with opposition and contest, you create a tension. The outrage of the revolutionaries caused Napoleon's explosion in Europe, setting fire to Europe for a generation or more. That cannot possibly be seen as a good, nor is it wanted. What is wanted is that the truth be known and understood, and those who have behaved in a way which is more and more unacceptable, more and more off the rails, be brought back into line. This requires knowledge. This requires understanding based on knowledge. Of course, one of the aspects of the Illuminati control is the media. Whether it's through the media moguls, and they are real, as we've seen with News International, Sky, etc., and the control of one family, Now, the criminal trials of the phone hackers in London, this is actually nothing. This is a few individuals been made sacrificial lambs, because, as we've heard from Edward Snowden and others, the UK and US governments, and others of course, have virtually universal phone and email hacking. Almost not a word is said about this. The scale of wrong, nature of the wrong is identical. The scale of the wrong is many orders of magnitude greater. Of course, there is one word: security. The word security is used to hide any and all and massive amounts of wrongdoing by government, and indeed by the agencies and associates, I may say conspirators with government, whether they be in commercial organisations or the military. Another little example. Noam Chomsky, the father of linguistics, for decades unable to get his books published in print, for the simple reason, in the land of the free in the USA, any publisher who did was likely to be put out of business. Chomsky can be found if you really look on the internet. And the reason is because he challenges the Illuminati's view of the world, portrayed by the general public media, which in any case seems to be more interested in often childish and superficial reality shows, game shows, things of this type, than any serious journalistic inquiry. In the middle of the 1800s, Karl Marx started as the editor of a newspaper. I think those in power understand the power of the media. For that reason, David Icke, who is certainly amongst those who hold something of the view I started off as expressing as the scenario, has been the main mover behind an internet but very professional London-based TV station, The People's Voice. I think those who support or know not how to oppose those who run the world say, well, the people want to be cattle. They want to proceed in a mindless, zombie-like way. It's Julius Caesar's bread and circuses. They're afraid to know what's going on. I think that's extremely unfair. I think given a chance, the mass of human beings are wise, yes, certainly tolerant, loving and forgiving, even of those who, by their own understanding, probably don't feel deserving of that. But you see, there won't be any more guillotines. Even those who have been most made to suffer by those in power, I don't think would want the guillotines. Why not? Because worse comes if you go that way. Why not? Because misdirected as they are, wicked, evil as those in power may be, and they have certainly done most atrocious, abominable and monstrous things, and do so now. There is, of course, Agenda 21, by which there is at least a proposal that 9/10 of the population of the planet, and that's 6-point-something billion people, should, by suffering disease, starvation and war, be eliminated. Hitler's ambitions were never so great, and Stalin's terrible exterminations were not so great. But somewhere, even in the Illuminati, in each individual there is the spark of humanity, and they too must be compassionately treated. What they must not do is continue to mislead and misinform us. When the truth is out, there will be no need to control us as slaves and robots. That, I think, is the view of the people's voice. When the truth is out there, that tyranny will fade away. I think that may even come about. The People's Voice formally launched 18th November. Now, it is the most interesting experiment in the media that I can think of in the 21st century or the 20th century. More important perhaps than television itself, maybe only surpassed by the internet. I offer it for your consideration.